In 33 AD Jerusalem, 11 men were hiding in total silence. They had just witnessed the public execution of their leader, and they were convinced they were next on the list. They locked the doors, slid home the bolt, and waited for the authorities to arrive. Normally, this is where a movement dies. When the charismatic head of a fringe group is eliminated, and the remaining followers are paralyzed by fear, they usually scatter to save themselves. Psychology and history both suggest the group should have vanished within weeks. But that didn't happen. Instead, these traumatized men walked out of that room, beginning a journey toward the very powers that killed their leader. They left behind their families and their safety for a mission that offered no path back home. This shift from hiding behind locked doors to confronting empires is one of the most drastic transformations recorded in the ancient world. They weren't just continuing a tradition. They were acting with a new, seemingly unshakable certainty. There is a basic rule when examining human behavior. People will die for a lie they believe is true, but they do not endure prolonged torture for a hoax they know they made up. To understand how this movement survived, we have to look at how these 11 men died. Their executions were the final test of their sincerity, and the results provide a unique look at the conviction that built the modern world. Instead of hiding, the apostles divided the known world, replacing Jerusalem with global missions. Peter traveled to Rome to challenge the empire. Thomas reached India, establishing 7 communities. Bartholomew pushed into Armenia, and Matthew traveled south to Ethiopia, expanding the message across 3 continents. This wasn't a peaceful expansion. Everywhere they went, they challenged local power structures and religious cults. They were fully aware that their presence would eventually trigger a lethal, violent response from the local authorities. Their decision to keep moving forward suggests an internal drive that made their own physical safety irrelevant. To them, the mission was infinite, and the world they were traveling through was temporary. The consequences for this mission were brutal. In Armenia, Bartholomew was flayed alive. It is an execution designed to maximize the firing of every nerve ending in the body, while the victim remains fully conscious. In Chennai, Thomas faced his own end. The man who once needed to touch physical scars to believe in his leader's survival was himself run through with a spear by those who felt threatened by his influence. Peter and Andrew both faced crucifixion, but with a specific request. They asked to be executed in ways that didn't mirror their leader. Peter was crucified upside down, and Andrew was tied to an X-shaped cross, prolonging his time on the frame. There was an easy way out for all of them. In almost every case, the Roman or local authorities offered a simple trade. If the apostles would just recant their claims and offer a sacrifice to a different god, they would live. This chart tracks their fates against their responses. As the years pass and the apostles are systematically executed, the line tracking recantations stayed at 0. Despite the flaying knives and the crosses, none of them confessed to a hoax. Andrew supposedly spent his final 2 days on that X-shaped cross, continuing to preach to the people who had gathered to watch him die. Even in his last moments, he was still trying to convince the onlookers of what he had seen. This unanimous silence under torture doesn't necessarily prove their message was true, but it does prove they were absolutely certain it was. They died as eyewitnesses who refused to take the easy exit when the pressure was highest. Rome had the legions, the gold, and the institutional power of the ancient world. The 12 apostles had nothing but their personal testimony. On paper, it was a fight they should have lost immediately. Instead, the violence used to suppress them actually fueled the movement's growth. The executions provided the very evidence of sincerity that convinced others to join, turning a few dozen followers into a global force. By the time the final apostle died of old age, the movement was no longer a small group in a locked room. It was a network of communities stretching from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. We still see the traces of their mission today. Modern ethics regarding human value, the concept of service to others, and the New Testament itself are all built on the foundations these 12 men laid with their lives. These men redefined courage. They showed that it isn't the absence of fear, but the presence of a conviction that makes fear irrelevant. Their story ends in blood and exile, but it leaves us with a question. What do you believe so strongly that you would be willing to face what they faced to defend it?